All right, welcome. It's season 2 of The Great Matters. We're glad to have you here. We're thankful for each and every one of you that subscribe, that take the time to join us each week. And we are here to bring it. It's hot again. And so we got another great topic for you. We appreciate that we are not a monolith and that every subject deserves to be explored with nuance, giving views from all sides of the culture. So we're here to bring that to you each week with some fun, a little bit of class. We definitely got some pepper sprinkled into it this time, though. Our panel consists of 3 guys, as usual, that you've come to know. We are nothing alike, and yet we still love each other in spite of our sometimes very big differences. I'm Billy Craig, joining you again from very sunny Delaware, and I'm joined by my teammates and co-hosts over there in Tennessee. We have T. Higgins, and out in Portland we have Jamar Chase. So welcome, gentlemen. I mean, it's funny. I was thinking I could have gone like Vince Evans and Bo Jackson, but
Hey,
I don't know if they could have made. I don't know if they could have made the reference. I don't know if they could have made the connection.
So
but
that would make you
Marcus.
So that would make you Samaje Perine.
No, see how we do. See how we do. See?
We started early. We started early this episode.
We ain't even get 30 seconds in. I ain't even get through the monologue.
You know what? No, he gone. No, he gone. He
Yeah,
gone. So you could be Zeke. You could be Zeke.
You know what? Honestly, that's probably kind of fitting the way my knees feel. I'm gonna say because I can work the abs still a little bit, but I don't know if I'm gonna be cutting going left to right.
1 foot. Putting 1 foot in the ground, and that's
it.
If it's there, it's there. If it
ain't, it's
third down. Just gonna live with the consequences.
Right. If it ain't there, it's time to punt. Oh man. So you guys doing all right? We good?
I'm blessed.
You ready to jump in?
Super.
All right, because I got a feeling this is gonna be another hot one. So let's go.
Yeah. Trying to start it light, to leave some air before it heats up in here. But today we're gonna discuss Black women. We'll there's a lot that goes into that. I know there's really a broad topic, and somebody's neck just snapped talking about what they're saying about Black women. Well, you're about to find out. You are about to find out. So this whole thing started, this topic discussion was off of, wonderful Facebook and a post that read that Black women are single because they are overqualified for relationships to their counterparts being Black men, is I'm assuming the angle that they were taking. And there's so much to peel back from that. And so we're just going to start peeling. And our main chef on this course, I'm going to start off with is Paul, because I think he got the sharpest knife for this one. So
let's start cutting.
Yeah, let's start cutting.
Look, I could be wrong, but I swear there's no other demographic on the planet that does this. Like zero. Like that blames the men for them being single. I don't see men walk. I don't see, you know what? I'll take that back. There was some brothers who be like, I don't date Black women. I know some brothers like that. Won't even look at a Black woman. Came from a Black woman, related to him, won't look at a Black woman in that way. Right? So there's that, but that percentage is so low. And they make it seem like it's most of us. That's not it at all. What the problem is what you were talking about in the last episode, Rev, entitlement. Who in this day and age is more entitled than Black women?
Dun, dun, dun.
Who? I can't think of another demographic that thinks somebody owes them something for how they look and because of the genitals they sit on.
You're gonna have to keep talking because I need to catch my breath.
I'm running through it on my head, and I ain't found a lie yet, though. So go ahead and expound.
I'm trying to figure it out. Why do I owe you money just because you breathe? Why do I have to pay your bills and buy you hair and eyelashes and an ass and titties just because you exist? Why wouldn't I just go get the broad who got that already? Because I don't know what we expect in here. It's a lot of people, it's real loud. Now, maybe I'm talking about a small collection, but it's so loud, it's like they speaking for all of y'all that think that a man owes you something just because you have a vagina. And then honesty, you got lashes, you got hair, you got all these other things going on, but you want a man to be completely honest with you. Now, that's not just black women. It's a bunch of different women wearing lashes and hair. So that's not even a shot at black women. I'm just talking about women in general with that part. But I can't think of another demographic that puts down their men more than black women. And on top of that, while we here, who raised these boys that they putting down? Because apparently y'all call us deadbeats and we ain't in the house, right? So who's to blame for these men that ain't shit? They was raised by their mammies, right? So what we doing here? So who put a bunch of ain't shit dudes in the dating pool?
Somebody peed in the pool. There's somebody's urine in there. Oh.
Rev?
But we turned it up. Let's turn it up.
I mean, I was like, hey, listen.
You
feel free to jump in. I'm just asking questions at this point. I ain't even. You notice I haven't called nobody a name. I haven't said anything. I'm just asking questions.
So here's what I will say. I'm actually very good friends with a lot of women, black women who are feminists, and I call them jokingly, like kind of tongue in cheek, responsible feminists, because they're not just the angry, rah rah rah, we hate men, the kind of thing. But what I find is that very similar to what we talked about in our last cast talking about guns, is that there is an entitlement element to this, similar to what you were saying, Paul, but I'll take it a step further. My biggest gripe with the whole I'm marriage material and I'm qualified and I can't find a black man, some of it comes from a resentment in that I think that what we have seen is that there are a lot of successful black men who then, once they become successful, they end up dating or marrying outside of their race. The problem is that's a handful of people. It is not the majority. Right. And yet and the numbers bear that out. That's not a
it's literally 90-10.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And here's the other thing too. Nobody wants to hear this, but you find the same thing across other demographics, right? Across other groups where basically they explore different stuff because they're like, listen, I wasn't really here because I wanted to be here. This is just what I had to pick from. Now that I have options, I'm going to explore the options. And what I mean by that is not just a racial element to it. It's very simply like, you know what? Hey, I married this chick and it's the best I could do, but now I kind of wanted a one with big booty. So now I'm going to find me one because I can afford it. Like, as crass and simple as that sounds, that's a lot of times what people do. Is my point. It's not just a racial thing, but more.
I get what you're saying, but you bringing in lames into a gentleman's conversation.
That's where I was getting ready to go. Is that oftentimes we have a language amongst black men. You just introduced it. There's lames, right? Guys who we know it's like, man, he did the best he could. We applaud him, shout out, whatever. But he did the best he could. Like, how they talk about, people get mad at that whole Kevin Samuels thing where he was talking to the girls and it's like, you're a 6 and you think you're a 9 or a 10 kind of thing. Mm-hmm. We know that amongst men. There are certain men where it's like, bro, you did well, but you're a 5. And,
we that call it out kicking your coverage.
For the football people out there who know what that is, you out kicked your coverage, right? But part 2 of that, and this is kind of where I come down on it, is that you said there's no other demo that tracks that way, where they have this thing where I'm going to tear down and be critical. My thing is this, and I bring up those women who I'm friends with who are feminists, in that oftentimes they understand that they have legitimate gripes and grievances with Black men and in the community. The problem is nobody wants to deal with the psychological impact of slavery and the impact that it has had over years. I'll put on my pastor, my minister's hat right now. Everybody understands, if you go back and you look at some of the problems that you would find in the Old Testament when they talk about the story of Moses in the exile. Same thing when you start looking back at Daniel and the Babylonian exile. Well, just because they were exiled, like even 70 years, they ended up sending them back after 70 years. This is multiple generations that passed. They didn't just come back and build. They had problems rebuilding the temple, rebuilding the wall, rebuilding the community. There were real issues because you can't go into bondage and into slavery and just think a handful of generations go by and everything's going to be perfect. There are some real toxicity in the Black community, and everybody knows it. It comes out in our art. It comes out in some of the just societal ills that we have. You can't look at a systemic problem and then address it with your personal emotions. We can't look at the crack epidemic. We can't look at the way that fathers in the Black community were systematically pushed out of their home. There was something I posted and I shared with some of my feminist friends. Umar Johnson talked about how, and this is statistically you can prove. We in season 2.
Season 2, I still ain't got my book.
He ain't got his book. We ain't got the school. Okay, here's the thing though. if we look back, but he made a very valid point. You can look at the numbers and see this. And anybody's ever said, I studied Africana studies back when I was in college for a while. One of the things that you find is, even throughout slavery, Jim Crow, whatever was going on, second-class citizenship in this country, which is what Black people have mostly experienced over the course of time, what you find is Black people were still marrying and having nuclear families in that sense. That didn't actually become a problem until you started getting into the 70s, when Black men couldn't find jobs, when they couldn't find opportunities because you had a whole bunch of jailing, deindustrialized many of the city and urban centers where these people were. So now they can't work. They're getting hooked on jobs. They can't provide. And they were incentivizing women to not be in the home with a Black man because the government would then supplement you. I got to feed my family and my kids. People were pretending to not be married, pretending to not be in these relationships, hiding. Literally, one of my favorite movies, Diane Carroll, James Earl Jones, Claudine, right? The movie was built on that premise, understanding that Black people, we have to understand the government is making it so that we don't want Black men to actually be there to support and provide. So when you understand that this is a systemic problem that has gone on generations, hundreds of years, it's almost like you need to be mature enough in your emotions to understand that this is not personal. This is not something where it's like Black men just, hey, and to your point, Paul, and then I'm going to jump off here for right now. Somebody raised these kids. Somebody raised these young men. And not only did somebody raise these young men with the values and the attitudes that they have, that you somehow feel like now that they're just not acceptable, they're not on your level. But it's important to understand that the same people, they didn't just raise them by what they said and did. They also raised them by what they didn't say and what they didn't do. I have a young man in my church right now. He and his wife, they've been divorced for several years. He has boys that he is desperately trying to co-parent. We've been helping him. He provides, he works, strong, educated, everything else. He literally moved across country to be closer to his boys, even though him and the mother are not getting back together. Well, she wasn't doing right by the schedule as far as visits and how the co-parenting agreement was supposed to work. And so he literally had to serve her. He had to serve her papers to be able to even see and talk to his sons. Now, that's part of the reality that everybody wants to act like that doesn't happen and it doesn't exist. It happens far too often where a lot of these men, they get fatigued because it's like, I want a relationship with my son.
That ain't no excuse.
But I don't necessarily want to have to deal with you. And if you're going to put a wedge and try to make it where I, don't want to be a good father, or I don't want to provide, or I don't want to be there. And to your point, it's not an excuse. However, that same attitude that shows up where it's like, I don't want to let you have the right to be with your children. That's the same attitude that says, you know what? That's why he didn't want to be with you in the first place, because that is a character issue. It's not that hard to work it out if you want to be fair-minded. Relationships, frankly. And that's the part that we don't want to address. Let's face it. I don't care if you're black, white, Asian, whatever your culture background is. I don't want to come home to chaos. I don't want to come home to a fight. Right. I don't want to come home, just like you don't want to come home to a man that's going to beat you up, drunk, ain't responsible. You don't know when he's coming home, whatever. I don't want to come home to bickering. I don't want to come home to your frustrations. And those are the types of things, if you're going to label the stereotypes again on these black men, label the stereotypes on these black women as well. And let's address that at the same time. It's not an either or problem.
Let's all own our shit.
Thank you.
That's
everybody got to own
our shit, because black men, we mess up all the damn time too.
And that's part of
the same way I just told.
And that's part of doing the work. We have to be willing to do the work, and that's how accountability starts. I gotta own me, right? So it's not just a matter of I'm gonna point the finger. So basically, I just went a long way to say what you just said, that we have to own both of them. We got to own both sides. It can't just be black men aren't doing what they need to be doing. It has to also be, well, what did you do? My uncle used to always say that anytime we would complain or talk about this person did me wrong, he would say, well, what did you do?
Chicken and the egg.
So I strategically remained quiet.
Unleash.
For this portion.
Release the hounds.
Because, well, before I even start, because I know, just knowing how these things go.
His wife gonna watch this episode.
Well, no, but this is where
my wife gonna watch it. I'm in trouble.
Well, but hold on. That's the key part that I wanted to start this off with. Is all three of us are married. All three of us are married to black women. So before y'all start and say anything like we ain't got nobody or this, we are all three.
You just did it. And my wife is fine too.
My wife is fine too. We all married to 9, 10s.
Yeah.
And all got really good jobs too.
So we the broke ones.
Right.
That's why we doing this podcast.
That's why we on this podcast.
Before you start talking about how we
jobs.
Look and what we ain't got and what this, I'm just keeping it a hundo.
Hey,
we the Barack and we the Jay-Z in our relationship. We outkicked our coverage and we was the broke ones.
Yep. There you go.
So keep going.
But here we are. So
now that we got that out the way.
Now that we got that out the way. So my issue, and this is a reoccurring theme for me, is personal responsibility. Now I know you said own it, but I'm gonna put it in a different way, which is personal responsibility. So we talk about all the time where I am overqualified to date in this range. And this is where they got mad at Kevin Samuels, RIP to the Godfather, when he was asking for your qualifications on that feeling. And every time, without fail, they think, and they as in women think, that their overqualification is tied to their paycheck. And that has nothing to do with it.
Nothing.
Paycheck, education, and body. That was literally the trifecta for Kevin Samuels.
How they look, how much money they have, and their education made them too qualified for whatever type of man.
For this bum.
Right.
Meanwhile, he got
a regular working man.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And the trick on this one, and Rev, people come to you all the time about this equally yoked conversation.
Yes.
And they treat equally yoked tied to the job, and that has literally nothing to do with it. You are a bad fiscal quarter away from being broke yourself.
All of us. But they exclude themselves from that. So I'm directly pointing this at them and letting them know, black women, I love you. I'm married to one, and all of that. I got you back.
But all day, 10 toes down. But if we're being honest, you're setting a standard based on income that can change like that. Like a bad decision by companies. Fox just got sued for $727 billion.
Yeah.
Somebody's not coming home with a job from that.
Absolutely.
So it's fleeting. Like a bad quarter will have you where you don't have a job. And now, so once you lose your job, are you now qualified? Like, or am I now qualified because you don't work?
Or does that go both ways?
Right. Like, I mean, I was originally qualified, but now I'm not qualified because, you know, my company was having layoffs and corporate layoffs. Like,
right.
Stop basing this on income. That shit has nothing to do with it.
At all.
Mind you, a person equally yoked is about mindset more than it's about income. I'm not saying.
I'll take a step further. It's not only mindset, but it's, to be more specific, it's parenting.
Mm-hmm.
It is
especially parenting.
It's health. It's like literally, and I can tell you the numbers.
Argument style,
more than conversation style, not even just argument style, but how you handle conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happens is, what you'll find is that most conflicts in marriages are found in 4 key areas: finances, sex, children, and generally speaking, like roles and understanding who's good. Essentially what we grew up knowing is chores. People get frustrated having to clean up behind somebody else's mess, whatever that mess is. Those are the 4 key areas. If you can agree to who's responsible for paying the bills or cutting the grass or whatever, you can agree to that. You can agree how you're going to raise your kids. You can agree on sex, and you can agree on money. Religion is kind of an extra add-on to that, because most people generally, that can be a little tricky. But the point is, all of that is really what counts, right? And the financial part of it is an element to it. I'm not going to go quite as far as to say what Andre was saying, that it has nothing to do with it. But what part plays too much of a role is this idea of the traditional, what they call breadwinner. And that's part of what, going back to what you were saying about Kevin Samuels, you would hear this all the time, where it's like, I make more money than he, and he would always come back with the same thing I would always say to people when they ask me. I say, it's one thing for your husband to make less money than you. It's another thing for your husband to not bring anything in. My wife, for the majority of our marriage, has made more money than me. There have been a couple of years where I may have made more, but generally speaking, she's made more. But more is like the difference between, okay, so you made 90,000 this year and I made, 50, 60,000. Like, we're not talking about, I work part-time and I brought in, 17 grand this year. We're talking about hardworking people who bring in money. And the problem is, and I hear this all the time about marriage material. Marriage material. One of the things, and I'll just, be very transparent here. One of the things that my wife and I did before we got married, everybody talks about doing marriage counseling and things like that. One of the things that we both did individually, we went to go see therapists. We went to actually do the work and deal with some of the hurts that we experienced from our childhood parents, because I know the divorce rates. I know that, over half of the people who get married are not going to stay married in their first attempt at getting married. So I was like, I don't want to be that guy, not just out of ego, but I was like, I actually want to build a legacy with this woman. Let me figure out where I need to work on it. So I literally went to I went to a counselor to deal with my anger, find out where my hurts were coming from, what was causing me to deal with these things in this way, because even though it didn't manifest itself early, it eventually came out. And it wasn't like I was angry walking around throwing stuff and beating her up. There was nothing like that. But I also knew that even though I loved her, I wasn't ready to be the husband that I wanted to be for her until I did the work. And she did the same thing. She reciprocated in kind, totally separate and apart from marriage, just to deal with herself. And I feel like, unfortunately, that's why I said it's a two-way street. It's not just black men are out here being sorry, or we don't support black women. It's, let's face it, you made some mistakes when you were young too, and you were out here chasing, not to, pick on them, it's low hanging fruit, But there's a lot more Sierras out. There's a lot more people that can learn from Sierra than actually are willing to do it. Because at the end of the day, I mean, it's all great to be like, oh, well, you know, she left that bum and then she found her a Russell Wilson. Well, the fact of the matter is, I don't necessarily know that he was that bad. I mean, maybe Sierra was part of the problem too.
Sierra,
I mean, I'm just saying,
Sierra is out of the mode of J-Lo. Every step was up.
Yep.
Every step was up. Yep. She started off with a little Bow Wow and went to 50.
Yeah.
And went to Future. And she found the golden goose.
And here's the thing. To your point, though, Paul, with that, because that tracks exactly what everybody does. They work their way up. And the problem is a lot of times people want to target it about race or even to Andre's point about finances, but sometimes working your way up isn't just, well, I'm going to find somebody outside of my race, or I'm going to find somebody that makes, you know, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 more than I do. Sometimes working your way up is just, I'm going to find somebody who ain't going to be fighting with me all the time.
Yeah.
So you call it working your way up. I'm saying it's working your way out. Because this is you are working out.
I was strictly speaking on the financial levels.
Oh no, I get it. No, and when I said money has nothing to do with it, I'm not saying she make $100,000, you make nothing. Like I'm selling mixtapes out of my car. I'm saying money, as long as.
But it happens that way sometimes.
Well, but it's about habits. Like if you have somebody who's putting in work, real work, he goes to work every day, 40 hours, 60 hours, whatever that looks like. He might have, part of this is he might have chosen a profession that doesn't pay like yours. Like my wife has a profession that starts off at a higher rate than I do. I'm a video producer. Like I'm a video producer / rapper. Like you can imagine what the money looks like for that.
I get paid quarterly too, Jay.
I
get paid quarterly.
I got 3 more slashes.
I get ass caps dropping. I get ass cap and be like, ooh.
I ain't even see that one coming, right? So but that pays
international. Where this from?
Than somebody who's starts off as an accountant or and things like that. Like it's about when
how about a teacher? Like the teachers, there's only so much they can make, and yet we complain about how like there's not enough black men who are teachers. Yeah, but how can they ever be teachers when there is no future? As far as financially, there's no advancement in being a teacher.
Right.
Your dad was a teacher.
And you told me I can't qualify for you because I got a teacher's salary. So I guess I can't be a teacher.
I'm out here in the community helping the kids. And that ain't enough for you.
So
how many ball teams I got to coach? How many times I got to mentor? How many people I got to intern for my company that I got to let come in? Like, but if salary is everything for you, see, that actually speaks to a poverty mindset. Yes. Because that's exactly what people who come from a poverty, and I'm not meaning that you grew up broke. I'm saying a poverty mindset has you thinking that the money is everything. The fact of the matter is when you're at peace, like I don't ask my wife about the money because I'm not even worried about the money. Obviously, I care about retirement. I care about investments, 401ks, all that kind of stuff. You want to be smart, and we all made our mistakes when we were young and that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, when you talk about I'm marriage material and I need to go find somebody on my level, I don't think we share the same mindset a lot of times as our peers and counterparts when it comes to it. Because and here's the other thing, and I'm really going torpedo the campaign, but one of the things that I find, and I've always, you talk about 10 toes down, I'll fight you. I'll fight a girl in the street. I'll fight you right out here in the middle of the road on this one. It bothers me when people say, yeah, but you're the only one. And there's not enough people like you. And I say, so, and I'm just like, so wait a minute. Out of all the people I know, how come I'm the only one that knows the other men, the other black men who are responsible? Yeah, but that's because it's different. I'm like, no. The fact of the matter is, you didn't want me back in the 90s either, because I was corny, and I was a square. See, I was Russell Wilson back in the 90s. See, y'all weren't checking for me. I'm just saying, everybody was looking for Future back in the 90s when we were in our 20s.
depending on what neighborhood you was in, you right. I was Russell because of what my Letterman jacket said.
It goes on the scale, right? We all come from that private Catholic school. So basically, and that's my point, is that everybody's like, yeah, but you're different. Actually, I'm not. I'm not that different. I'm not saying that I don't have uniqueness about me. I'm simply saying that across the board, there's a lot of men, but you can't, what they say, stop looking in the club. Have you ever looked in a library? Have you ever looked in your community group? Have you ever looked in these different places? Like, if the only place you know to look for a man is church and the club, you're probably going to get the same men every time.
But here's the problem.
You didn't catch that, did you, Paul?
But here's the problem with that is, first off, we're going to rewind real quick because y'all said at least 5 times in the conversation where they say, I'm marriage material. These are my qualifications, and this is why I should be married. Who the hell told y'all that? Like, who's the judge on this?
I'll be one.
Like, because you're not asking us. Like, you're getting your information from other women. The girl, you should be married by now. You stop asking your girl because she don't know either. That's why she's single.
Yeah, and then they got their whole list of qualifications for what a man is
and what a man wants, and all of them. We won't say all because somebody. I ain't like that. Yeah. But a majority,
the loudest ones. Let's say the majority. I'm not even gonna say the majority. No. The loudest ones,
or even a plurality. The loudest ones are the ones who are making all the sweeping accusations and statements, and that's part of the problem. Is that what they're not going to tell you? They're going to tell you that, well, Billy Craig rejected me because he thought, he was going to find some girl who was light skinned, or he was going to find some girl who had this or didn't have that. Like, he thought he was better. No, the fact of the matter is, I chose what I chose because I chose peace. I chose to be able to work out my, disagreements. I chose to get out of the chaos that I saw at home in many ways because I don't want to fight.
I'm a flat water brother, bro. I like it quiet and calm around me.
Man, if it get too loud, then it's like, wait a minute, I got to stop this loudness.
But this gets back to the equally yoked thing. Like, my wife is really dramatic sometimes. How I am here is how I am every day. Like, this is our personality, Joe. People watching this for the first time, this is who we are. I am relaxed. You can't have 2 amped up people in the house.
No,
that ain't gonna work.
You can't.
Nope.
So you can call it equally yoked, yin and yang, whatever you want to, whatever form that you want to take, but you have to be balanced. Yes. And so this is what we're talking about. And one of the main things, and we haven't mentioned it yet, but we've listed everything. All of this comes down to communication.
Yes.
And are we able to communicate? You yelling at me is not communicating. Let's get that shit understood. Like, you need to learn how to talk. Let's have a conversation. Man.
Well, and it goes, and I'll say this, and it will go both ways because that's part of the thing that what you have with men. But we see it with men because I'm bigger and I'm stronger and I'm taller. And if I'm yelling, what do we call it? We call that domestic abuse. Well, it doesn't have to be physical, even if it's verbal. If you're intimidating her, okay. So then, what do you call it when it's women? Because honestly,
when she in your head like this, and you can't do nothing.
And and here's the thing, and then you wonder, well, why did he leave and go find him a white woman? Why did he leave and go find him some chick from Puerto Rico? You know why? Because his mama was the one doing this the whole time when he was growing up, and he was like, "Nah, I'm cool on that. I love my mama because I kind of have to, but I'm cool on that." And that's where a lot of people don't want to deal with doing
because it's not just one woman in the family.
No, it's sisters.
If it's one woman in the family that's on you like this, all of them like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Because if it's the one, because if it's just the one, the other ones will be like, "Nah, we don't do that.
Leave them alone."
Yeah, leave them alone. Or they'll pull you aside and be like, "Look, baby, I know she be tripping, but we love you and you ain't gotta go." My point is that as we always do here on The Great Matters, there has to be a level of sobriety and maturity that allows you to be able to see, like what Paul was saying. I'm so glad he said that. And I'm going to say it again because it needs to be said. It goes both ways. This is not like, let's tear down black women or black women are tripping. No, black men be out here tripping and hiding behind excuses, hiding behind all the reasons why it couldn't happen, all the reasons why I couldn't be a good dad or I couldn't be a good husband. Oh, she didn't do this right. Well, I didn't appreciate. No, it's excuses.
My granddaddy had 2 whole families.
As did mine.
Families. Not he didn't have a side chick. He had families.
Actual
so if he
families.
had 2 whole families, imagine what he you see what I'm trying to say?
Right. No, absolutely.
No, I get it. Yeah.
And the point is, we have endured, and I'm speaking of Black people in America. I'm not talking about you're of African descent. I'm talking about you are the descendant of slaves. You come from that line. We have so much toxicity and things that we have to be willing to work out. We got to work double and triple time to do the work. And part of doing the work means I also have to work on myself, not just work on community stuff. I have to see how much that's affected me. That's why I talk about that book I read back when I was in college, The Psychological Impact of Slavery, because frankly, to point blame, to point and place blame on other people, always pointing the finger, all that does is pacify you for the moment. You're still single. You're still bitter. You're still resentful. How do we deal with the resentment if you're constantly saying, well, you know what? I'm overqualified and I don't feel like there's a Black man out there good enough for me. They're not ready for me. Well, maybe you need to open up your circle, because I can promise you that's not true.
They're
100% true.
There are also a bunch of subconscious physiological behaviors that we carry through from slavery.
Absolutely.
Right? Like there are a great number of Black women who lactate without being pregnant.
Absolutely.
Because they probably come from a long line of wet nurses.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And the promiscuity in some of the in Black men and leaving children all over the place, probably because they come from breeders.
Ain't no probably to it.
You understand what I'm saying? Like there's a lot of things that are going on at play that we got to work out in addition.
And I'll say this, I'll take it a step further, even if because people don't want to deal with this. I forget the book I read, but I remember understanding the kind of the history and etymology of the words. And this is an earmuff moment for anybody who, I don't know why you have children watching this podcast or listening right now, but if you do, this is the earmuff moment. But it's a very sensitive thing, and why I don't actually use the words that come out of my mouth. I don't use the word or the term, rather, motherfucker. That's the reason why I don't use it outside of a situation like this where I'm explaining it, because people don't understand the sensitivity and the gravity and the weight of a term like that. That comes from the fact that they were literally breeding us like dogs. Like put a bag over his head, put a bag over her head. They won't know the difference. He won't know if he is having sex with his sister or his mother or his cousin. We're talking people within the family. We're not talking about third and fourth removed.
Right.
And so my point is that type of subjugation that puts you in that place and that type of powerlessness, we think that it's just, you need to make a decision to do better. This isn't about a decision. You have to make a decision to do the work. But when I decide, like I talked about going to therapy, when I decided to go to therapy, I didn't fix it. It's still not totally fixed. But the decision was to go get the help and do the work. You don't change it in one generation. There are still, like you talk about my grandfather, we're talking about Gilbert Avenue, right? McMillan, Gilbert, like up there, like that's where my grandfather, I remember him as an old man. But the fact of the matter, that man had a totally different family on the other side of Clifton. And that they didn't even find out about until later. Like they didn't even know. Like he was simultaneously, I mean, my grandfather on my mama's side was a whole trip. So was my grandfather on my dad's side. But the point is, there's a lot of breaking that we have to be willing to do. We got to break some bonds, break some systems that are within us. And it's easy to say, reject your past, reject the things that you were taught, reject the people in your family. It's easy to say, reject that stuff. It's much harder to actually do it when emotionally it messes you up. It's a lot of work, and it is a continual thing. And I say that simply to say to all of my peers and people that I advocate for and I support, I have 3 sisters. I don't have any actual blood brothers. I have 3 sisters. I want all of them to do well. I would literally lay down my life for any of them, and I support them in every way. But the fact of the matter is, there's a reason why, if my sisters aren't married, there's a reason why. And it's not just because all black men suck. There's some stuff that they took from my dad and my mom. There's some things that hurt them. There's some reasons why.
I wonder why we don't leave room for asking questions around, we always say women are crazy, right? That's the little thing we say, they hyper temperamental. But you ever thought about they put all kind of chemicals in their hair and on their face?
Leave room. That is the reason.
I know, but we never bring it up.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Are you putting chemicals right into your brain?
At the closest thing you can get to your brain. And I'll tell you straight up, my wife, Kate, I don't know if she's going to watch this or not.
She will.
I know. But here's the thing. One of the things,
and she gonna talk with her girlfriends about it, and they all gonna be looking at you sucking their teeth.
But you know what's crazy about it? I will say this, and I give her so much credit for this. She stopped actually getting like perms and processing her hair about, I want to say 6 years ago. Mm-hmm. And to your point, Paul, she has been way more, and I don't mean this in any way condescending. I'm not trying to be funny. I'm dead serious. She'll tell you she's been way more rational, reasonable. She has been less emotional. She has been more focused, even though she struggles with such things sometimes. Even in moments of anxiety, she's been way quicker to come back to her baseline. And here's the thing.
We also got perimenopause going on too. Let's not forget that.
But here's the point that I'm getting at with the hair. You're talking about the chemicals. This is where I'm saying black women also have to be responsible for these outcomes, in the sense that when my wife went natural, the first thing black women was doing was like, what you doing with your hair?
That's the same thing they did to my wife. My wife went natural about 7 to 10 years ago.
And so the expectation is you're supposed to be a mother and a wife, and you're supposed to be at the top of your industry. She's a great therapist, and she's one of the best at what she does in the world. And she's smart, and she's got to do all these things. And you want her to do it with chemicals in her hair, but when she takes the chemicals out of her hair, now you're shaming her for her appearance. And here's the thing: I ain't shaming her, because I can promise you, most men, we really just don't care that much.
We don't. I
mean, we care. I don't want you out here looking, like
I love it,
looking crazy. Right. But the fact is, we really don't. My wife asks me all the time, do you want me to have braids? Do you want me to just let it grow out naturally? You want me to just press it? I'm like, girl,
whatever you do with it is what you do with it. I'm glad that you ain't putting that mess in your head no more. I wasn't never gonna fix my face to tell you to stop, though. I know my place. Yeah. But I am glad you stopped.
And even further to the point, Paul, I have a family full of hairdressers on both sides of my family. And so that is woven into the fabric of the black community. Straighten your hair.
The pain you going through to get that weave in your head. No wonder you mad.
Right. Now, the thing about it is that takes some conditioning as well. That takes some time to get to a place where you can sit long enough to let them burn your scalp to be able to straighten your hair. For what purpose? So that you can fit a particular image in a particular
mold. Can look more white. Let's say it.
Now, I'll take it a step further. Now, here's the thing. The same thing is true, not just with your hair cosmetically, but you think about makeup. You think about other products that you're taking in. We haven't gotten into the conversation about birth control. It's one thing to deal with birth control from the standpoint of managing your menstrual cycles, and sometimes that can be really difficult. But I'm taking it to the point of the food that you take into your body and how that affects fibroids, which is so much worse in the black community for a lot of different reasons. And it's like you said, the chemicals that we're taking into our bodies, like, it's amazing. I think about myself how much people think that me bodybuilding is just something I do because I'm wanting to compete, but a lot of it is just health. It's a health choice. I'm 47. I can still pick up stuff. I can still walk. I can still run. My body still works. I have a lot of injuries from sports. I ain't running fast, but I mean,
we'll call it a jog. It's more
yeah,
like
okay.
I don't even jog.
I can try. I can try. There you go. I can try. Right.
I got a cool uncle try.
There you go. I can get into what's my man who did the video, Paul? Remember
Lou,
he did it.
You talking about Louis Spice?
No, I'm talking about Lou.
Okay.
He did the video where he was doing the trot. Like I literally will get out of my car.
When he was the referee.
Yes.
Yes.
I pretty much show up to every practice and every game just like that.
Spice be doing it too. Spice got the trot down too.
But see, I like Lou. I actually move a little more like Lou. Spice, he a little bigger man than I ever was, but I kind of had it, and it's kind of you got to lean. Yeah, I know. He's super nimble. But the thing, anyway, the point I'm getting at is we have to understand that there's so many factors that go into this, and if you can understand it, then you can have compassion for what Black women go through.
Mm-hmm.
Just like
absolutely,
it needs to be reciprocated. Do you understand what it's like to be a Black man and never be able to ever? Like I tell my wife this all the time, to never be. I can never get angry. I can
mm-hmm.
never show and express my anger
mm-hmm.
in public. Why?
Right.
Because I'm a 6 foot tall, 220-pound Black man that I'm always going to be the first one that they come for if anything jumps off. I can never frown. I can never show displeasure without there being some type of consequences, be it small or large. And so it's important that we understand that it goes both ways, right? Black women are going through a lot, but Black men are going through a lot too. It's not as simple as they just don't care. They just trifling. They just sorry. They're not trying to work hard. You know how many times he's applied and they said he was overqualified?
Boy.
How many times he applied for a position and it's like, yeah, but he only makes $65,000 a year. Yeah, because every job he went after that was $120,000 a year, they said he was overqualified. Or if he went for the one for 150, they was like, nah, you don't have what we're looking for. And really, they saved that for their nephew or their son to, get in. That is literally the world that we live in. And then it's like, but you won't support him when he starts his own business or when he starts his own recording label. Why? Because he's not making enough money up front.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what? That white girl doesn't feel all those pressures that you do. Justifiably, you feel pressure to bring in money. That's fine. That's your business. But she don't feel all those pressures. So guess what? She tells him, look, take 6 months. Take a year to get it together, and I'll handle it. Now, I say that kind of tongue-in-cheek about the white girl, Becky. But the fact is, my wife did that for me. She gave me time to build Metro Computers.
Mm-hmm.
She did that for me and said, I'm willing to go ahead. Like, I ain't going to do this forever. Okay. At some point, we got to cut bait or you got to go get a real job or whatever. But the point I'm getting at is there was no, I'm going to be resentful. I'm going to walk around here with an attitude. I'm going to treat you like you're less than me. Well, I don't understand why I married you in the first place because I knew you wasn't no good. Like, no, she understood the plight that I had, the road that I had to walk.
Mm-hmm.
We all have to be. Anyway, I'm done preaching. So,
but I'm always good for a side note. So let's go ahead and drop a side note before we wrap this up. When you was talking about the job stuff and men, Black men being underqualified, overqualified, not getting job, like I just, as Black women, I do want y'all to take a moment and sit here and realistically think when it was in vogue to hire a Black man.
In this country,
at any point. Yeah. Just like after George Floyd died, there was a whole, movement of corporate America. We love Black people. Those jobs went to Black women. Let's be honest. Those upper level jobs where they were like, we need to include.
They do not like Black men in corporate America
at all.
I forget corporate America. I'll take it a step further, and I'm not taking shots in any particular way. I'm just pointing out the quiet parts and bringing them out loud. Ask yourself, when you look at the Biden administration, we're well more than 2 years in, other than the, I forget the Black guy's name who was over the military. I think he's the Joint Chief. What's his name?
I've done my best to ignore everything going on with them people for the last 2 years.
But here's my point. My point is they have empowered and employed and made it. It was vital. They made sure not only is the Supreme Court Biden's pick, but his vice president, the speaker, like the actual person who
His vice president ain't black, man. Stop
Okay,
that.
that's not my point.
But
Here's what I'm saying.
they
She
consider a
Let
representation.
me tell you
That's
something.
called brownwashing.
Here's what I'm saying. She's a whole AKA. So I'm gonna walk away from that. Really,
It's called
quietly and
brownwashing,
slowly.
bro. It's when they bring brown folks who
okay.
have no attachment to slavery.
Here's my point. Here's
and
my
put them in
point.
roles that
But
should
here's
be
my
going to
point.
black people who do have an attachment to slavery.
That's fine. What I'm saying is the Biden
Barack
administration.
Obama's another one, but keep going.
My point is they have found everybody. They found roles, and they've made it a point to make sure that black women, brown women, women of color have been represented in ways that you can't name, other than the general, like I said, other than the guy, his name escapes me right now, I forget his name, other than the guy who's over the military, name another black man of any prominence in the Biden administration. There's plenty of black women. I just gave you 3 of them. Name a black man. And that's my point, is that it's never been in vogue, to what I understand. It's never been in vogue to hire a black man. It wasn't in vogue to hire Barack Obama as president.
They tried. They
like
tried
literally.
Yeah, they tried real hard not to. But also, another side note, since we're about to wrap this up, but I wanted to address one thing: the myth, because there truly is a myth that for the select few, the 10% that do go outside their race, black men go outside their race, it's not because white women are docile. It's not because another race is docile.
No, please.
Even though that's what I'm just. So let's go ahead and address that.
She gonna do whatever he says, and she ain't gonna say nothing back.
I can address it if you like.
Go. Hey.
I mean, hey, look, no, not at all. In fact, I'll even say that my oldest mom was actually violent and hostile, whereas my black wife is chill.
And so, but
chill is a relative term, by the way, because I met her. She ain't like, she ain't just walking around peacefully praying and stuff. Like, Heather got something to say. But she's a peaceful individual, and that she's not looking for no problems. That's the point. Yeah.
But essentially, sometimes, and we've kind of touched on it, but let's just go ahead and make it plain. They know how to communicate. Somebody else knows. We're looking for people who know how to communicate to make life a day easy. I don't need to add complication to my day. I promise you, from the time I get in a car to the time I return home, I am immediately a threat and stressed in society. Yes. I don't need to come home to have that same feeling.
Do you understand what it feels like to have a cop jump behind you as a black man?
Every day. All the time.
Even if I'm not, if have one in front of you, it don't matter. Have a cop in the vicinity.
If I hear a siren behind me, my heart just drops.
And frankly, sometimes what I need,
and I'll be so happy when they go past me,
man.
I'll be so happy.
And what you just said, both of you just said, frankly, you really touched on something, because I'm gonna tell you straight up. I honestly I'll just tell you why I chose my wife. I needed somebody who was willing to draw me out at times because of all the anger and frustration. It's why I don't live in Cincinnati anymore. I drove home. I just drove back home over spring break. We went back home to visit the in-laws, and we went up to Cincinnati. I drove from Delaware to Kentucky, then Kentucky to Cincinnati, Ohio, and then Ohio back. I didn't see a single police officer until I crossed the river. And then I had to get off at the Paddock exit, Galbraith Road. So I get off there on Vine Street.
For people who don't know, that's down the street from the police station.
Okay, now here's the point. From the time that I got off of 75 at the Paddock Road exit and drove, I got on Vine Street eventually, took it all the way through. I saw 3 police officers from the time. I saw one in Wyoming, I saw one in Glendale, and I saw one in Springdale. And then the next day, I saw a couple of them in Fairfield. In 1,400 miles of driving, those were the only 4 police officers I saw. That was my reality growing up. That was my reality as a young man. And frankly, I chose my black wife because I was like, I kind of expected her to understand in a way that I knew a white woman wouldn't, frankly, be able to relate to that level of tension and anxiety that just comes with living and seeing police officers. Like,
for the record, my wife does most of the driving when we go somewhere. When we driving in the city, my wife drives.
Yeah.
Real talk. Unless I got to take the kids somewhere because she got something to do, I do my best to not drive for that reason.
And none of us are like felons or like we all have normal, like we just this is what
normal cats, right?
Dude,
regular life.
Normal black dude. We all live in the suburbs. We all got kids that
we're not flagged for anything. Exactly.
Right. I can legally purchase a firearm.
Right.
Like with no problems.
Mm-hmm.
I can legally go buy a car, no problems. I can legally register to go watch children or whatever. Like none of us got any of that. This is still how we feel on a daily basis.
And we're middle-aged men. We're not even young.
Right. And yet,
and my pants are pulled up.
Listen,
right.
Look, I'll put it to you like this. I pastor a church where it's a mixed congregation, mixed race, mixed culture congregation, ages, everything is different. And I'll tell you straight up, when I decided that we were going to have to do something about security, one of the first things we talked about in our church meeting was we told all the white people in the church, if anything, God forbid, anything ever happens, the first thing you need to tell the police when they show up, the pastor is black. He's supposed to be here. Mm-hmm. Yes, he's armed because he works here. Mm-hmm. You need to, don't even say your name. Don't even tell him what happened. Don't tell him where anything is. The first thing you need to do is identify he's not the bad guy. Mm. The fact that even needed to, and that wasn't even something that I came up with. I was told by other white ministers left and right. They said the first thing you have to do is tell the white people in your congregation to identify you as the good guy, because they know the police are going to come in and assume black guy holding a gun, shoot him. Now, imagine that level of tension and stress. Mm-hmm. And again, going back to this is part of what, and I'll say this just to, I guess button it up. Black men, in my opinion, have to do a better job of expressing this so that black women understand, because just like I don't live in a black woman's body and I don't think about issues that women go through all the time because naturally that's not my life. Mm-hmm. Black men have a responsibility to let black women know this is what I'm going through. There's a lot of stuff I assumed that my wife knew that I would be dealing with. And it's like, she's like, yeah, I mean, I have black people in my family and I grew up with them and I got a brother or whatever. But the fact is, I don't know. And people just assume that you know if you don't tell them. That's part of that communication. I guess just to close it up, the communication is everything. Stop assuming that you know just because you met a couple black men or you dated a couple black dudes. Stop assuming that you know all of us. We don't actually necessarily just want to go out and offend you. Like, we ain't thinking about you. Like, honestly, we really ain't thinking about you.
No.
We just trying to get home alive, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Every day.
Every day, boy.
Absolutely.
All right, so I'm going to handle the APB for this episode. So in relations to black women and like I said, this episode was not intended to disparage anybody. We just talking reality. Mm-hmm. So if you get offended, you was looking to be offended. But one of the things that I am looking for is maturity in this conversation. How do we move the ball forward? My APB is for, as we've discussed, black men and black women to figure out how to work together in trying to overcome whatever obstacles that we face out here, because we both have our own list of things that we got to deal with. And one of the things that we're not doing successfully based on social media, and I know we can't base our entire life off social media, but one of the things we're not doing successfully is working together for solutions to uplift the community. Right. Whether you marry somebody outside the race or what have you, that shouldn't have any bearing on us having each other's back. And
Nope.
that's the part that I'm looking for, is that we need to be fully supportive of each other and how we can get better together, even if we apart. Whether it's if we can make it the micro of, being with a child's mother, or we can take it the macro of celebrating Black women who are getting things done, celebrating Black men that are getting things done, and how we uplift that portion of the community, because that's what's needed in order for us to move this forward. Because in reality, the world is still against us. I know we've had our moments where they've celebrated a few things here and there, but overall, in totality, you can't tell me 1 year makes up for 400. So at this point, we need to figure out how we're going to work together. And I'm putting on an APB for the mature adults in the room to figure that out.
Right. I second that. To add to it, to approach this conversation once we put it up with nuance and not emotions.
That's right. Because that's as I often say in my coaching calls, that's where the work is, in being able to put your emotions down for a second. That don't be emotionless, but understand that your emotions sometimes can trick you. They can be lying to you. The facts on the ground are your emotions aren't necessarily going to fix anything. You have to be accountable. It's like there are plenty of times when I don't feel like doing it. I still got to do it if I want to achieve the goal. And I appreciate what Andre is saying there. Like, as a community, we don't have to agree on everything. We don't have to like everything. We don't have to feel good about everything. But we have to see the big picture. What they say, keep your eye on the prize, so to speak. Like,
the main thing.
And at the end of the day, instead of trying to always parse it out and try to figure out who's better than this or who's not, that, like, we have to understand that, that we're all under the gun. And so at some point we have to be unified in that way. The big picture. All right. And that's it for the Gray Matters this week. We thank you for joining us. As always, we look forward to seeing you again next time. Please continue to watch. Join us on our different platforms socially. We want to make sure that we can get to as many listeners as possible. So please be sure to follow us. And we look forward to seeing you again. Have a blessed week. Thank you.
Peace.
So a preacher, a stay-at-home dad, and a rapper walk into a bar.
I am my ancestors back from the grave, no longer a slave, beat to the God's meal, pray, surviving my day. A threat to society, cause Malcolm showed me the way. I'm young, black, intelligent.
Oh, now they afraid.
It's too late, I am the king, I am the spark to the brain. I am the light that fought the dark and now you're seeing the rain. I am the thing they spent their whole life killing. To find out, I am the rose that grew from under their building. This ain't for likes, this is a fight so you can open your mind. Peel the scab back, reveal the blood and see what we'll find. I promise. Like LeBron, I am just one of a kind. No longer will I accept the blind, leading the blind. Keep it a buck, say what I want, not giving a screaming afterward like Pac until the day my heart stops. And when I do, remember when I take my last breath, just remind the tape and witness all the knowledge I left the grave. So I said, a preacher, a stay-at-home dad, and a rapper walk into a bar. The Gray Matters.